Hey everybody, it's Doug from Rock Creek Runner, and I am super excited to have my friend Jason Fitzgerald with me today. Jason is a 2:39 marathoner, a US ATF certified running coach, and the man, the myth behind strengthrunning.com. So Jason, thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks Doug for the great intro. Happy to be here.
Oh, great. And we are talking about nutrition today, and we're talking about it for a few reasons, one of which is because you have this brand new product out, Nutrition for Runners, which we will dive into later. But I also wanted to bring you on because I think this conversation will be really interesting because we come from different places when it comes to nutrition. Anyone kind of watching and listening to this probably knows that I eat a plant-based diet, and you don't. You eat things that I don't normally eat, and I maybe eat some things that you don't eat. But we both agree on a lot of common principles when it comes to nutrition, and which we'll definitely talk about today. And one of those is that most runners really blow it when it comes to nutrition. They might focus really heavily on the miles they're running and the splits and their pace and all that stuff, but when it comes to nutrition, they are really not focused on it and kind of blow it. So why do you think that is? What do you think runners are doing wrong, and where should runners really be focusing, very generally when it comes to nutrition?
Right. I mean, nutrition is so important. It's, what I think can be the icing on the cake that really helps runners take their running to a whole new level. It's important for so many reasons. A really solid nutrition plan is going to really propel your recovery. You're going to recover from long runs, faster workouts, challenging trail runs a lot faster than you would if your nutrition wasn't very good. And it's going to help you be properly fueled for your runs. You really can't underestimate the power of fueling. And I think a lot of runners don't put too much time and effort into thinking about their nutrition because they're not very passionate about nutrition, like they're runners. And I fell into this trap for, the better part of my entire running career. For about 15, 16 years, I only cared about the running part of my training. And if you are really curious as to how much you could achieve with running, how fast you could get, how long you could maybe run, you really can't ignore your nutrition. And I think that if runners have performance goals, whether that's a distance or a certain pace or anything like that, nutrition is going to be one of the keys that's going to help you get there. So nutrition really can't be downplayed. Its importance is huge to runners who have any kind of performance ambitions. And so I'm just really excited to talk to you about it because only in the last, I would say, 3 to 5 months have I been devoting more time to it. And I've seen enormous improvements in my own running and with some of the runners that I've been helping recently with their nutrition too. So it's a hot topic. And, even though you're a plant-based athlete and I'm just a normal omnivore kind of standard eater, I think we are in agreement probably a lot more than we're in disagreement when it comes to nutrition and fueling for runners.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And one thing I see runners focus on it, when you're in the middle of a long run, say you're training for a marathon or even, a half marathon or something like that, after 10 miles, after you're out there for an hour and a half, 2 hours, then you really kind of need a little bit of fuel to get through the rest of the run. You start feeling that bonk, you start feeling the low energy, and you need to start focus, or you need to think about fueling a little bit. And so that's kind of where runners automatically gravitate towards when they're thinking about nutrition. But then when the run's over, they are kind of, and I did this for the longest time. It was like a license to eat whatever the hell I wanted to. I would just come home and throw a pizza in the oven or do whatever and just fill myself up with whatever junk food tasted good and looked good. But that wasn't, like you said, contributing to recovery or anything like that. That was just filling my belly and satisfying my taste buds. So, what are some of the common mistakes that new runners make when it comes to nutrition? The ones that you see time and time again with the people that you're working with, the mistakes that they're doing, that if they just shifted things a little bit, they could really be contributing to better recovery and better fueling before the run.
Yeah, we could probably talk about nutrition mistakes all day long. And I've seen pretty much every single mistake under the sun. And, I would say I think the number one mistake that runners are making with their nutrition is that they're running to eat and not eating to run. So this is exactly like you were just mentioning. You finish a run, you're really hungry, and so you just think you have license to eat whatever you want. And, I used to think that too. If the furnace is hot enough, it will burn anything. A lot of distance runners say that. If you're running, if you're running 100 miles a week, you probably have a little bit more license to take some liberties with your diet. Now, of course, that doesn't mean you can just eat all kinds of fried food and or fast food right after every single run. But of course, there's going to be a little bit more flexibility after, if you're running 20 miles a day. But of course, we're normal runners. We're not running that much. And the number one mistake that I see runners making is that they do think that just because they go for a run, they can eat almost anything. But the truth is that running is actually one of the best ways to lose weight. However, diet is one of the key components to weight loss and also weight management. So if any runner has weight loss goals or just simply wants to maintain the weight that they're currently at, they need to have a proper nutrition plan in place because it's really easy to gain weight if your diet is terrible, even if you are running a lot. I'm sure all of us have this experience. We go to a local 5K or maybe even a 10K, we finish the race, and then we go over to the food tables, right? This is where every runner is getting a bagel or a cookie or a bagel or something like that. And I look around and I see some runners, they just ran 5K, that's it. And they're having a bagel and they're eating orange juice with a cookie. And next thing you know, they've had like 90 grams of carbohydrate and they only ran for 3.1 miles.
Right.
So you really can't just eat whatever you want after any kind of race. And so if you pay a little bit more attention to not only how much you're eating, but also the types of food that you're eating, you're going to be a lot better off in terms of weight management, in terms of being properly fueled, but not over fueled. And of course, you're just going to feel a lot better when you're running because you're not going to be carrying a couple extra pounds and you're just going to be healthier in general. So, if I had to pick the number one mistake that we're all making, it's that we're just eating way too much after our runs because we think that we're allowed to. But a smarter fueling strategy is going to give you a lot more benefit than just eating everything in the fridge after a long run.
Right, of course. My favorite tent at the end of a finish line at the end of a race is the beer tent, which is just the best thing you want after a marathon, I guess, but probably not the best for your nutrition. So let's quickly, you brought up weight loss and weight management and that kind of thing. Let's quickly go through a couple different reasons why people might want to focus on nutrition, and then what types of foods would be good for them. Where you would want to focus your energy. So let's start with weight management. If your goal is to lose weight and you're training for, say, a 10K, your first 10K, or maybe even all the way up to a half marathon or something like that. What should you be eating before and then after the race to really kind of encourage that weight loss along?
Great question. And I guess I'll start with a caveat that we don't think that you should focus on weight loss and training for a race at the same time, because to be properly fueled for your workouts and long runs and then also optimize performance during the race itself, the goals of weight loss and training for a race are sometimes at odds with one another. And runners run into the problem of underfueling and being short on calories during their training, and then their training suffers, their workout times suffer. And so what we have found is much more helpful for weight management is if you do have some extra pounds to lose, then focus, say 4 to 6 weeks, even up to 8 weeks before you start training for your race on weight loss. And there are specific things that you can do during training that are really helpful for weight loss that wouldn't necessarily be in a training program for a race itself. So, when you're training for a race, if you want to run the fastest time possible, it's always beneficial to do race-specific training. And race-specific training isn't necessarily the best training for losing weight. But I think for optimizing your race performance, it's fantastic for weight management. So, that's a really important distinction to make. However, let's say that you just want to maintain your weight and you're training for, a 10K or a half marathon or even a marathon. The best thing that you can do from a diet perspective is to, of course, remember not to eat anything under the sun after your runs, but limiting the types of processed foods that you're eating just on a regular basis. And this sounds intuitive, but we all make this mistake over and over again. We go for the quick fix. We don't cook as much at home. These are all mistakes that we run into just as busy people who are also working and all that. So it's definitely challenging, but we've come to understand that the best type of diet for runners is one that focuses on whole foods, and these are real foods. They're not food products that are made in a lab or sold as a 100-calorie snack pack or something like that. These are foods that are as natural as possible. They're as close to the earth as possible. So fruit or vegetables, of course, is kind of the classic example of what a whole real food should look like, as minimally processed as possible. And if your diet is mostly whole real foods, and you're not overeating after your runs, and you're focusing on nutrient dense foods, maintaining your weight is going to be relatively straightforward. And so when you combine a whole food philosophy with training that's structured in a certain way to optimize your performance, it becomes a lot easier to manage your weight.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, and I really am glad that you brought up that distinction between running to lose weight and running to train for a race. Just today, actually, I was emailing back and forth with a guy who just finished a half marathon. He had trained really hard for the half marathon, and he actually put on weight, and he was discouraged because the goal was to lose weight.
Yeah.
And I think that could have been caused by any number of things like you were talking about. But so whole foods. Really going back to unprocessed, unpackaged foods is something that I, definitely try to eat, all the time. That's a big part of my diet, just as much as the plants, as the unprocessed stuff. And I think that, we definitely agree on that. And no matter what kind of diet you have, going back to this kind of whole foods diet is really probably going to be the healthiest option. It's kind of funny. I've noticed that the nutrition is becoming more and more a part of the mainstream for runners recently. I've noticed that Dean Karnazes just came out about how he famously would order a pizza in the middle of his run and have it delivered to a street corner, and he would just roll it up and scarf down the pizza on his run and things like that. And he's coming out and saying that he's switched to a more whole foods diet. Obviously Scott Jurek, is the famous vegan athlete. Timothy Austin is the older runner who's right now big for the paleo diet. And all these diets are coming back to this more natural, whole foods, unprocessed. Not all these supplements, not all this stuff that people think of when they think of working out and training for nutrition. So that's cool. I think that's really great and a good spot for that we agree on. So how about for one popular thing for runners to think about is what do I eat before the run? What can I eat that will sustain me throughout the run? Where do you like to have people focus when that comes to be pre-workout nutrition?
So pre-workout nutrition depends a little bit on how much you're running and how much time you have before your run. So if you run in the morning before work and you're exercising for less than an hour, you don't actually really need to eat anything before a run of that duration. Less than an hour, you have plenty of carbohydrates stored in your muscles to fuel you for a run of that distance. If the run's going to be an hour, but it's very intense, so you might be doing a long track workout or a tempo run or something like that, then it's probably beneficial to have a small breakfast beforehand. But even so, you probably have enough fuel, already in your body without any breakfast to get you through that run without any problems. You start running into fueling issues when you're exercising for 90 minutes to 2 hours or longer, or if you're doing a more intense workout of, say, 75 minutes or longer. And that's when you should definitely start taking in some calories, both before the run itself, so before you even start, and then also during the run. So if the run is, let's say between an hour and a half and 2 hours, you probably want to take in some calories during the run. So in terms of what foods work best for this, again, before the run, it's always helpful to focus on whole, real foods. My go-to is a banana. It's easily digested. It's, of course, a fruit. You don't have to worry about all kinds of crazy ingredients like with some of the crazy energy bars and gels and things like that. Um, all kinds of other things work great too. Plain oatmeal is fantastic. The real key here is to focus on a carb-rich breakfast before you go running, and that doesn't give you license to eat as much sugar as you want before you go running, especially if it's a long run and you tend to think that you got to fuel up with as much sugar as possible. But these types of whole foods that still provide complex carbohydrates are going to be the most beneficial foods for you. And then what you eat during the run, this is where you have more flexibility to eat processed types of fueling foods like gels or energy blocks or things like that. It's just more difficult to carry real foods with you. And while you're running, you really do want to focus on foods that are very easily digested. Digesting while you're running is a little bit of a learned skill, so you can teach your body to digest more efficiently while you're running, and that's why you have to practice your fueling strategies if you're training for a marathon or an ultra marathon. If you're trying to eat a whole banana and you're 10 miles into a run, that might not sit as well as just having a gel. And so while you're running, it's probably more beneficial to focus on gels or blocks, or, there's a lot of other products on the market that you can have while running. But, the general principle is to, you can eat roughly one gel per hour for a long run or a workout of, say, 90 minutes. So, if you're working out for 2 hours or less, 1 to 2 gels or the equivalent is what's going to be enough to maintain fueling levels at a proper level. So as long as you focus on those two fundamentals, and of course there's some nuances there that we go into a lot more detail in the program, but those are kind of the fundamentals that help runners stay properly fueled before and during a workout.
So how much do you really focus on the carb to protein ratio? That's the 3-to-1, 4-to-1 is kind of a popular thing that a lot of runners throw out. How important is that to you?
I think it's important, but it's not as important as we make it to be. So we put a lot of emphasis on the 4-to-1 carbohydrate to protein ratio. This is why chocolate milk is always touted as an ideal recovery drink. It's because it has that optimal balance of carbohydrates to protein. So with that said, I actually drink chocolate milk after most of my runs because I love chocolate milk. There's pretty much no other reason. Now, with that said, you don't need the optimal carbohydrate to protein ratio after a run. If you were to simply focus on having foods that contain a variety of types of carbohydrates, so some simple sugars, mostly complex carbohydrates, and a little bit of protein, that's good enough. That is perfectly fine, and you're going to recover just as well as someone who just downs a glass of chocolate milk. So I wouldn't get too hung up on it, and I think that's one of the big mistakes that runners make is they try to count every calorie, they try to figure out ratios of carbohydrate to protein, or they're scoring every single piece of food that they put into their mouth. And not only is that really boring, but it's not sustainable. I don't know anyone who counts calories or scores their food, and they actually do that over the long term. And so what we really want to do is give runners the tools that they need to eat appropriately, to fuel their workouts the right way, to get to their goal weight and to maintain it without having to count every calorie and keep a food log with, every single gram of protein that they're eating. Nobody wants to do that. That's the barrier to adherence is just way too high because it's too difficult, and we're probably not going to be very accurate with it anyway. So I wouldn't try to worry about that ratio of carbohydrate to protein. I mean, if you were to have, let's say you were having a cheese and hummus sandwich after your run, you would say to yourself, "Hey, that's a pretty good post-run snack." Now I'll ask you, can you calculate the carbohydrate to protein ratio?
Yeah, no, I can't. No.
No way. Neither can I. And I've been researching this stuff for like 5 months now. I have no idea how to do it because you'd have to add up all the calories, and then, okay, how many calories of the piece of bread is carbohydrate, and you have to do that for every single element of the sandwich, and it's just crazy. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody is really doing that accurately, and so we just simply do not have runners do that.
So I get, the last question before we dive into everything that's involved in this new exciting product you have is there it's like you mentioned, chocolate milk is a perfect example, the popular example right now. Is there a kind of a secret weapon for what to eat or what to drink right after a big run for proper recovery?
I don't think there's necessarily a secret weapon. There's a really great. I had a conversation once with Matt Fitzgerald, who is a prolific running author, and he made a really good point where, the harder your workout or the longer your long run, basically the more depleted you are, then the less important the type of food that you're eating after your run is. So, I mean, you can imagine if you finish a 100-mile race, are you going to worry about the optimal food to eat right afterwards? No, you're going to eat everything in sight because the level of difficulty of what you just did gives you that flexibility. So, obviously everyone points to chocolate milk as the ideal recovery drink because it has that optimal balance of carbs to protein. I don't think that you should really worry too much about that. What I like to do is I like to focus on more on carbohydrates right after I finish a tough workout or a long run because it's what is most beneficial for restocking your glycogen stores. And it's also easier on your stomach. So I have an iron stomach personally, so I can handle a glass of chocolate milk after a run, even a tough workout. If you're like that, then that's great. Another great option that I do, I would say most days of the week, is I love having a green smoothie that also includes some fruit. So you're getting not only enough carbohydrate to restock your glycogen stores after a tough workout, but you're also getting in all these great nutrients from vegetables and fruit that it's concentrated, it's in a natural form. You're not you're eating kind of processed vegetables or anything like that. Excuse me. But that's a really great way to not only optimize for carbohydrates after a run, but also for nutrients. And then within an hour, you can have some type of protein source, whether that's a nut butter or a chicken sandwich or something simple like that. But I love both chocolate milk and green smoothies after a run because I think they really jumpstart the recovery process.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that not only is chocolate milk a great ratio of carbs to protein, but it also has a very powerful campaign behind it out there at every marathon, handing out chocolate milk. So if that's obviously, or that's definitely a good option if you drink milk. But for me, my big thing is a smoothie, just like you. I'd throw a banana in there, some frozen fruit, some salad greens, either spinach or kale. And then I usually add some nuts and seeds and things like that just to add a little bit of protein and add a little bit of fat as well, and then water. And not only is it nutritious and exactly what you need, but it's also hydrating, which is another important post-workout recovery tool. So that's great. Let's.
Can I add my favorite smoothie recipe, which is super simple that I'm digging right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Please do.
All right. So it's a kale mint mojito.
Oh.
Of course there's no alcohol in it. Maybe if you're having it at night, you could add a splash for kicks, but it's simply 2 cups of kale, 2 cups of coconut water, 2 cups of pineapple, and then a 1/4 cup of mint. And so you blend it all together and it is fantastic. It tastes like you're having a cocktail, but you're getting so much great stuff, and it's really helpful for recovery.
That's great. That sounds absolutely delicious. And if people listening and watching aren't big green smoothie people, adding pineapple or mango, some of the really sweeter fruits, more sweet than like a strawberry or something like that, really kind of takes out some of that bitterness and allows for me anyway, it makes the kale smoothie a lot better.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's talk a little bit about nutrition for runners and this new thing that I was excited to have been asked to be a part of. I was included with a little interview about ultra marathon nutrition, which was a lot of fun. So tell us a little bit about what the whole package looks like and why people should be interested in it.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about it. As some of your audience may know, I'm a running coach, not a nutritionist or anything like that. So I definitely focus on the fueling and coaching side of nutrition a lot more than kind of the meal guides and meal plans and very specific stuff like that. So I partnered with a registered dietitian who is also a runner, which I think is really important, to create a program that will show runners what to eat, when to eat it, and everything they would need to know to basically nail down their nutrition, really dial it in, and either optimize their running performances because their nutrition is better, or help them lose weight so that they can ultimately race faster. So, the whole program includes a lot of different resources. There's the whole kind of ebook that includes all of our nutrition lessons, our entire framework for how we look at how a runner should eat. There's a Ask the Dietitian Q&A series, and then of course there's all kinds of there's meal guides and example meal plans, a whole cookbook with I think over 75% of our recipes are vegetarian or can easily be made vegetarian, so it really appeals to a pretty wide audience. And then, of course, there's the interviews that you mentioned. You were a part of it, and we talked specifically about ultramarathon nutrition, how to fuel both before and during an ultramarathon. And we interviewed Mario Fraioli, who's a senior editor at Competitor Magazine and a coach to the 2012 Costa Rican Olympic men's marathon team. Nancy Clark, who's probably the most well-known sports nutritionist in the country. She works with the Boston Red Sox and the Celtics. She's even been on the back of a Wheaties box, which is pretty cool. Most sports nutritionists don't get that. You have to be LeBron James or something. So she's definitely a rock star, and we're really excited to have her as part of the program. So there's a lot of resources within the program to help runners either dial in their nutrition if they're looking for ways to tweak it and take it to the next level so that they can become a better runner, or for the runner who is struggling with losing weight and they're training for races but they're feeling low energy, they're not hitting their workout splits because they might be overweight, or they're trying to juggle dieting with training for a race, which we mentioned before is not a good idea. So we kind of go over exactly how to structure your training for weight loss versus for optimizing a race time. So there's so many resources there, and we're really excited to share it.
Yeah, it's pretty neat, and I was flipping through it today, and one thing I really like is that it doesn't push you to go with one particular diet. I follow a plant-based diet, but I am the first to admit that it might not be the best thing for all runners. And it might not be, like I do it for running for way more reasons than just my running. So I know that that's not what everyone thinks and what everyone is passionate about. And I like that it doesn't push you to go paleo, it doesn't push you to go vegan. It's just how to have a well-balanced diet for runners that kind of is adjustable for just about everyone, and I think that's pretty neat. It was neat to be part of it, and I have really enjoyed what I've seen within the program so far.
Oh, thanks, Doug. Yeah, and we're just excited because it's not a diet. It has no name. We're not going to call it the Nutrition for Runners diet because we don't tell you to exclude entire food groups or to limit your intake of entire macronutrients like the caveman diet or the paleo diet or something like that. We focus more on intuitive eating, eating anything that you want. So we don't limit, even if you like ice cream and you're trying to lose weight, we show you how you can eat some ice cream and still enjoy yourself. Because we think, we have an entire section in the book called Perfection is for Losers, because we're really adamant about you not being a perfectionist when it comes to your diet. We want you to enjoy the food that you're eating. That's why our recipes are actually delicious, and they don't require you to spend 4 hours in the kitchen and get ingredients that are only found in like your really crunchy organic market that's 30 miles away in some weird corner of the city. So we're really excited about it because it's simple, and as we know, simple isn't necessarily easy, but it's always the best way to accomplish any kind of goal that you're looking for. Getting back to the fundamentals is, I think, the surest path to success, whether that's running or dialing in your nutrition. And, if you were kind of labeling yourself with a particular diet, or if you were trying to count calories or make all these food calculations and obsessing about those numbers, then we don't think that works. And if you're really into that, this program's probably not for you. But if you want a simpler way to do things, if you don't want to follow a diet, then this program probably is for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And neither of us can stress enough how important nutrition and what you're eating really does, how important it really is for your training and becoming the best runner that you can be. So I'm glad that you put this together. I think it's going to help a lot of people out and help a lot of people who just have no idea where to go when it comes to fueling. Give them some direction and hopefully have them become better runners because of it. So thanks for putting it together. Idea. Yeah, and thanks for joining me. And I know you're coming from Denver, and it's middle of the afternoon there. It's getting dark around here, and I even wore my Colorado shirt for you, my little Run Colorado shirt.
I love it. I wore my Warrior Dash shirt.
I like that too. Cool. Well, thanks, Jason, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks so much, Doug. Take care.